Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Would You Rather with our very special guest, Mr. Connor Ratliff, actor,
Hello.
comedian, and host of the Dead Eyes podcast, which is how we met. We are going to talk about two films. The Thing, John Carpenter's original Thing, thank you very much, and Edge of Tomorrow, Live, Die, Repeat, I Dare You. Please subscribe and like this video. Thank you. Connor, we're in. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Good, good. So indeed, we did meet through your Dead Eyes podcast. You reached out to me.
Yeah, well, I mean, we haven't yet released we're working on our third season of Dead Eyes, which Dead Eyes is a podcast which is investigating sort of the minutia of various, successes and failures that people go through in show business, stemming back to an experience I had back in the year 2000, which was I was cast in a small role in Band of Brothers. And then the day before I was supposed to film my scenes, I was fired because Tom Hanks had supposedly looked at my audition tape and he thought that I had dead eyes. And so the podcast as a whole is an investigation / exploration of it's me trying to piece together what actually happened back there. I tracked down the actor who replaced me. I found out more about what happened through him. And very often we will veer off into different sort of side tangents. And one of the episodes for this next season is I just booked a little part on an episode of The Blacklist. And it was my 7th time auditioning for The Blacklist. And it occurred to me that it might be interesting for me to track down the 6 actors who had booked the parts in the previous episodes I had auditioned for. And so Bruce was one of the actors. I set myself, tracking down all these actors and trying to explain to them both the premise of my podcast and the premise of this specific episode. And it was fascinating just to hear, because they're not conversations that normally happen. You don't normally get to talk to the actors who book these, very often 1 or 2 scene parts, and they're also not the kind of parts that people do interviews about. Nobody interviews right. Nobody interviews to find out what's it like being in one scene in this big hit TV show.
But I could totally see that being like a culty acting thing, because what else would the working actor want to know? It's like, who did I lose the part to? What was that like? It's total behind the scenes.
Can't do it in the other direction, because I would have to go to the casting agents and say, tell me who came in for that, which I'm sure is a violation of protocol on every level,
Yeah, I don't think SAG would go for that.
I don't think they let the actors I think if you had wanted to track me down, find out who else auditioned for Bobby J, I don't think they would have given up the information.
I sincerely, and I have never thought about, and I have another podcast, I'm a web series where we talk to actors and people in the business, directors, writers, and all sorts of stuff about their careers. And when you hit me up on Instagram about this, I was like, I immediately responded. Yeah, it's amazing. All right, so let's jump in. Let's talk about some movies.
Yeah.
Connor, I sort of suggested, or you sent us a list of movies that we could sort of choose from, and I immediately pounced on The Thing. And then, so let's start with that. What drew you to The Thing, John Carpenter's Thing, ladies and gentlemen, the original?
Grew up watching a lot of horror movies. I sort of the most intense I could stand growing up was stuff like Gremlins or Arachnophobia. I believe I was at I had some older friends, and I was at their apartment, and they had a bunch of things on VHS, and I believe they chose to watch The Thing, and I immediately I still remember the vibe of from the very beginning. I had this dread watching it of just there's such a sense of foreboding and disorientation, and also something about the setting. And I'm someone, I hate hot weather, I love cold weather, and yet anything that is set in remote snowbound like lab facilities like that is immediately just terrifying to me, because it feels like
disturbing.
Yeah, it feels like even if there hadn't been an alien, it feels like something bad would have happened there. Just these men just stuck in these like tin cans in the snow, sort of, you know?
12 men had just discovered something. For 100,000 years, it was buried in the snow and ice. Now it has found a place to live. Inside.
It starts from a place of dread, and then it's unrelenting. It goes from dread to gloom. Like the ending of this movie is such a devastating kind of defeat. That it's just like they're exhausted and they're doomed. You know.
Love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel like they're fighting amongst themselves, and they don't trust each other, and just the violence they inflict on each other. So I have to say, when I saw your list of movies and when you wanted to do The Thing, and I thought, okay, so the obvious, because Bruce, you and I have done The Thaw, we've talked about like the Arctic drilling, I mean, just how life is just so much more horrible. But then it occurred to me, and I'll just share my screen here. There's this Wired article about how like racist and sexist and horrible AI is, because it basically is feeding off of us, right? And how racist and sexist the world is. And so it reminded me of like The Thing, right? It's like it's not even an external thing, really. It's cultural. So anyway, so that's my contribution there.
Nice.
Just to keep things light and happy.
Yeah. In all the dread of the thing. So we're about the same age, Connor, right? So The Thing comes out in 1982, and I'm looking over my computer here, and I remember, of course, there were kids in 1982 who saw E.T. and there were kids who saw The Thing. And I was so one of the kids who saw The Thing and hated E.T., right? I'm one of those kids, and I still am to this day. It is a cultural barrier. It is a dividing point in geekdom, especially for me, like you. It was high school, so of course the movies you see, the music you listen to is insanely important. And I remember like, oh, you guys like E.T.? You just want to go see this thing flying around? Okay, that's cool. But I'm into something a little deeper. Okay.
Overall, there aren't a ton of scares in E.T. And there's overall the tone is one of wonder and then a little bit of melancholy every now and then. Whereas
some outright sadness. No, when they I mean, we're not on ET here, but when they take ET away in those suits, I mean, and he looks like, and his heart goes out and the little flashlight in his chest goes out. That's, I mean, even I, who hated ET, was like,
But in terms of how badly things are going, how that moment in ET, that's sort of like the room tone for The Thing. You know what I mean? That's that's the baseline. Like,
yeah, man.
Things never get that much better for anyone in The Thing. Like when they're just hanging out at the beginning, I'm kind of like, ugh. And nothing's even gone that wrong yet.
Right.
Comparatively.
Oh, and even my I have so many favorite moments of this scene of this movie, but one of my favorite moments is they're sitting on that couch, they're all tied up, and they're testing people to see who is gonna, who's the thing and who isn't. And the guy who was the head of, I'm gonna cut it in right now.
I know you gentlemen have been through a lot, but when you find the time, I'd rather not spend the rest of this winter tied to this fucking couch.
It's great. It's the best.
Yeah.
All right. Just a wonderful movie. And I am actually not a person who likes grossness, right? Like my son took me to see the latest Spiral movie. And I just don't like torture porn. It never does it for me. So when the hands are being eaten off and all the goos popping out of everything, that's I still, sort of look through like this, but everything else, characters, it's one of the most perfect horror movies ever made.
It almost feels like a jury movie in a way. You have these this like jury's worth of dudes who are in sort of trying to figure out what's the best way to deal with this. They're like trying to figure it out the whole time. Everyone's trying to figure it out. And even when they do figure it out, ultimately the problem is so big that it's not to anyone's benefit other than hopefully they've figured out a way to
Contain it, at least.
to contain it for future generations, so no one else discovers this thing and that it doesn't wreak havoc later. But I don't feel like any person can get to the end of this movie and feel like they know that anyone accomplished anything, which is an interesting, which is in its own sense like one of the purest sort of existential horror themes is the idea that you've lived your life for nothing. That these men, if they all fail to prevent it from happening to the next people who discover this thing in the ice and thaw it out, then they went through this for nothing. They might as well have all just immediately died at the beginning of the movie. There is
or Keith David is the thing, which is the the internet story that my son tells me.
Yeah. But I don't think there's much reason to be too optimistic at the end of this movie. The feeling is like this is the next people who discover whatever freezes over here, they're going to go through the same thing, and eventually that doomsday scenario, which I always enjoy whenever that there's that part where Wilford Brimley is going through the computer analysis and
Yeah, I mean, I think what was so great about this movie too is that it's gritty. If you see a movie like this today that's dark, there was that god awful sci-fi movie Life with Jake Gyllenhaal and Ryan Reynolds and
God awful.
But there's a patina on it, so even when it's this horrible thing that's taking over the earth, and it's the same kind of idea where it's like we're not going to be able to contain this. It's like, but at least we have a nice manicure and our brows are waxed. Like you don't have that in this movie.
No.
Yeah.
It feels like a 70s movie. I mean, it's made in 82, right? But it does feel very much of a piece with Carpenter's 70s movies. Like everything's sort of, everybody drinks too much. They all are a little overweight or incredibly pale, right? Everybody looks like they're going to die, to come.
Anyway.
From the moment the movie starts, they all look like, damn, these people are in bad shape, Let's take a second and ask Caroline about Florida. Let's jump right to Florida now, because we haven't spoken in about 3 weeks, I think, Caroline. So how's Florida doing with the pandemic? I mean, not that they ever said there was a pandemic. Florida man didn't believe in the pandemic, right?
I have to say, when we picked Edge of Tomorrow as the second movie in the whole Groundhog Day aspect, I almost pulled a Florida story about the maskless cryptocurrency convention that was held here, this shoulder to shoulder, because it just brings everything full circle. But and it's interesting with the thing, it's not that it's cloning, but it's like becoming the other, it's taking over the other person. And I saw this great story, and let me just pull it up, about Florida, of course, hosting, they're back to their annual Ernest Hemingway lookalike contest. So there's literally like a room of people who all look the same. Anyway.
Who are older, the prime population for COVID, right?
Yeah. And it also could be like a Wilford Brimley like convention, I suppose. So
Nice.
that could be our
Nice.
thing. Yeah.
Nice thing
Nice.
segue.
Bringing it back to the thing. But yeah, that's how Florida is. I mean, like, it's business as usual. We're fully open, going gangbusters here. And I have to say, I do enjoy eating at the restaurant. So I can't say that I don't.
All right, let's pivot to Edge of Tomorrow, which, by the way, you know, this, if you Google this, you see, of course, all the backstory and who knows which is true. You know, because all the posters say Live, Die, Repeat, which is a much better title. They should have gone Live, Die, Repeat, but they couldn't.
Absolutely.
For some reason. And Edge of Tomorrow was obviously a copyrighted name, so they had to go with that. But everybody calls it Live, Die, Repeat. It should be called Live, Die, Repeat because that's the coolest part about this movie. It's also, you know, one of the best Tom Cruise movies. I have a 16-year-old son, so I have to school him on movies, and sometimes I'll drop one in, like Minority Report and Edge of Tomorrow are two he hadn't seen or watched YouTube videos about, and he was like, "Wow, that's actually like a good movie." I'm like, I'm telling you, like, this Tom Cruise was excellent and still is sometimes. This is not a
he's
diss
a
Tom
good
Cruise.
actor.
Yeah, let's say this is not a diss
carry
Tom
a
Cruise
movie.
at all.
Let's face it.
No, at all. But
this is one that, like, it took me by surprise when I saw this in the theater because I thought it was going to be good. You know, I thought it was going to be good, and then I remember about a half hour into it realizing, like, I think this is better than good. I think this is great.
You see, this isn't the first time. And we've had this conversation.
And I shouldn't have been surprised because the director, Doug Liman, who I believe directed the original Bourne Identity, like, that guy knows how to make an exciting movie, you know?
And Tom Cruise knows how to be in and produce an exciting movie. So, you know, we should have expected this, but I didn't see it. I also didn't see it coming.
I think the trailer probably looked good, but I don't think the trailer, thankfully, I don't think the trailer gave away most of the parts of the movie that really surprised me. Yeah.
Every supporting character, every single one is fantastic. Like, off the charts, fantastic. You know, from the guys in the squad to the generals to everybody he runs into every time he dies, just gold. Gold. Parts like you and I would play, Connor, are gold in this movie. And by God, you know, you and I should get a part in one of these movies like this. You know, just be like that guy who runs up with Tom Cruise, you know, and gets blown away, but has like that one line, "Hey, my brother said," you know.
Yeah, I would love to be a guy that runs up, but there's not going to be some like girl that runs up.
Well, wait a minute, but there's Emily Blunt, and she's the greatest warrior in the movie.
Yeah, that's not a small part either. So
no, it's true.
You know, it's kind of like, I'd like to be in Devil Wears Prada too, but you know, well, we can only dream.
Well, I hope you get blown up in a movie.
This is what
I think it's going to happen. I hope we all get blown up in a movie at some point. I feel like it's never happened to me. I've never had a character get blown up, and I would welcome it.
So obviously, Edge of Tomorrow, like, I could have pulled a lot of news stories. I was thinking with the war stuff, I could have pulled, you know, like Russia, everything old is new again, or new is old again, or whatever that saying is. But I just had to talk about, because I don't like to think it's too dark, is like the crazy stock market. We're back to tulip bulbs and pets.com again. You know, with what's going on with crypto and what's going on with GameStop and all of this crazy stuff. Anyway, that's my contribution, is that the world is just on repeat.
So anyway, old is new. Absolutely. It's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Connor, all right, we went off on our tangent. Why don't you talk about Edge of Tomorrow and what made you agree to talk about this movie a bit here today?
Yeah. The movie just never stopped surprising me, and I never stopped being engaged. It's funny when it needs to be funny. It's exciting when it needs to be exciting. Sometimes it's both things at once. That the image that I think of when I think of this movie is the part where he like basically rolls in front of the vehicle and is immediately run over by the car.
What the hell were you thinking?
I always just think of that because it's such a great comedic moment that I was not expecting this movie to be. The one thing I was not expecting this movie to be was funny. And it's really funny. Without in a way that elevates everything, you know.
Yeah,
Right.
I think we can say that about both these movies. Like something that you know that you get in a really great sci-fi movie is humor, whether ironic or so painfully true.
Yeah, it's interesting because Edge of Tomorrow is about somebody experiencing the same day over and over again, like looping in time. But there's almost something in the thing if they have something in common where, because of the monotony of the location, it feels like we're seeing the first new day that these people have experienced in a while. That they've just been in this like
Frozen bubble.
This bubble, and then all of a sudden it's like, careful what you wish for. Here's something interesting is going to happen today, you know.
Yeah, cool. All right, let's run through our checklist that we always do for each and every movie that we discuss on Would You Rather. Are there any Black people in either of these movies? Keith David in The Thing.
Both of them.
Yes.
Yeah, and both
Yes.
of them.
And then in Edge of Tomorrow, there's a Black person scattered every now and again, but any major characters?
Yeah. Soldiers. Just
The soldiers that die over and over again, who are the bit parts that Connor and I might play.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's, I don't think there's any like, and none of the principal characters in Edge of Tomorrow, right?
Yeah. Asians? We got any Asians anywhere? Anyone?
I don't recall any.
Anyone? Bueller?
I feel like there's certainly nobody in The Thing. And then even in Edge of Tomorrow, really, you couldn't get a marketing analytics person, really. Like
When I go to Google and I look at the cast, I type in Edge of Tomorrow cast, there's a small smattering of diversity, but I don't remember them from the movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah, small
there's
smattering because they got smattered too quick. You didn't see any face. Okay. All right, so Keith David has to hold up all of diversity in both of these movies. He's a fantastic actor and does a great job, so maybe you can do it. Bechdel scale, Bechdel test. Two women having a conversation that does
clearly not even in The Thing. There's not even one woman. Maybe The Thing. Maybe The Thing is a woman. We don't even know.
Even if The Thing is a woman, it never has a conversation with anyone about anything, not even about another man, you know, like we don't know the gender. Honestly, we don't know the gender of the dogs that are in the penned area when they put the dog that's been contaminated by that the Thing is pretending to be. The most and this feels like it's not generous at all to suggest that the other dogs have a conversation when they realize that this alien is in there with them. They all immediately start saying like, what the fuck is going, like in dog language, they're saying, what the fuck is going on? Let us out of here, etc. I don't think it counts. I don't think it
does either. Although that would have been an awesome like mashup of a movie if you had like the talking dogs from Up, like, and just put them
in the kennel and have the Thing dog explode.
Even just like subtitling that scene is something that people can do right now if they want to. That dialogue is up for grabs. But it is very much it is very much a 12 Angry Men style scenario as far as gender in the thing.
Lawrence of Arabia. Yeah.
Which is not the, when they made the 2011 prequel,
Which
to
we
the
shall
thing.
not speak of, but go ahead.
But there is more more than just dudes in that movie.
It's true. And
The Norwegians are more diverse in their science right before the events of John Carpenter's The Thing.
absolutely. And bravo, diverse Norwegia. All right, Norway. So fail on the Bechdel test. And we talked about Florida. So I think we come to the most important question of the evening.
Oh, she's asking if you could please subscribe and like this video. Thank you.
Connor Ratliff as our guest. Which would you rather? Would you rather be in Live, Die, Repeat, Edge of Tomorrow? Obviously, we're going to assume you're Tom Cruise in that scenario, or pick anyone you want in The Thing. I would assume you'd take Kurt, but take anybody you want. Which would you rather?
I mean, Kurt only has to die once, and it's the easy answer would be, obviously The Thing is a miserable experience, but Edge of Tomorrow, that is a lot of dying,
painful dying,
a lot of painful dying, and I'm going to surprise myself, because obviously Edge of Tomorrow is something that ends in a victorious way. But I'm just so exhausted at the thought of it. It's just too much. And I can't believe that I'm choosing this. But I would rather the small possible victory and the guaranteed rest that Kurt Russell's character, he is able to rest at the end of that movie. And I just don't want to get run over and slashed up by knives and blown up, and that's too much death. And I wouldn't want to endure it. So I'm gonna go. I would opt for The Thing scenario.
Wow, this is very existential. I love it, Connor. Yeah, we haven't had sort of this is like 19th century German answer. I love it. It's existential. I'm going to jump in and just say Live, Die, Repeat any day of the week, hanging out, just being in that place where they are without a thing seems miserable. Just
so you would opt, even if you removed The Thing, you still wouldn't choose The Thing. You just wouldn't want to work at like an Arctic
kill me
outpost.
over and over again rather than spend my time in the Arctic outpost. Ugh, please no. Caroline.
Who am I in any of these? I have to choose between Emily Blunt and then what? Like Elsa waiting for Frozen to start when the thing like moves itself offset. I mean, there's like nothing there. The other thing is I'm from Florida. Okay. So I can't do the Arctic. I mean, clearly I can't do snow. That's why I'm here. I'm certainly not going to the Arctic. So yeah. For sure. And I'll call it Edge of Tomorrow. What is this Live, Die, Repeat? That sounds like a James Bond movie.
You're right. Maybe that was the whole. All right. So I think we have a split here. Connor is in the existential fear of multiple deaths and would rather deal with the cold reality of The Thing. Caroline and I are ready to die as many times as you like, as long as we don't have to be up there in that cold. Excellent. Take us out, Connor. What's coming up? What are you doing? What should we tell everyone about that's coming up in Connor world?
Season 3 of Dead Eyes will be coming out hopefully later in the summer. But the first 20 episodes are available now. A lot of great guests, a lot of fun episodes. Available now. Rat Scraps at Caveat, starting I think August 1st. I think it'll be Sunday nights, and it will also be available to stream for people who can't make it to the Lower East Side of New York City.
Well, we really appreciate you coming on and talking movies with us, and and sharing all your existential insights with
And
us.
I'll throw in one more thing. If people are really starved for content, the George Lucas Talk Show is a show that I have been doing as a live stream. We're on hiatus for it now, so it's not top of mind, but we did 331 hours of live streaming over the past year. It's a show where I pretend to be retired filmmaker George Lucas. Griffin Newman plays his talk show sidekick Watto, and our producer Patrick Cotner as himself. And hopefully that show will be back later this year.
Cool. All right. Well, I think that's it. Thank you very much for taking the time, Connor.
Thanks for having me. It was a pleasure.